Welcome to Dell Technologies PowerProtect Data Manager version 19.7, New Features Series. How to protect a Tanzu Kubernetes guest cluster. Reference Dell Knowledge article number 184431. This video was created to describe the architecture and configuration of VMware Tanzu Kubernetes clusters with Dell EMC PowerProtect Data Manager, and explain how the VMware vSphere with Tanzu workloads are protected. This video presents the following. What is vSphere with Tanzu? Tanzu Kubernetes guest clusters and supervisor clusters. PowerProtect Data Manager protecting VMware Tanzu Kubernetes guest clusters. Configuring PowerProtect Data Manager to protect Tanzu Kubernetes workloads. What is vSphere with Tanzu? VMware vSphere with Tanzu transforms vSphere clusters into a platform on which Kubernetes workloads can be run directly on hypervisor layer. As a vSphere administrator, you enable existing vSphere clusters for workload management, thus creating a Kubernetes layer within the ESXi hosts that are part of the cluster. Tanzu Kubernetes guest clusters and supervisor clusters. When a vSphere cluster is configured for Kubernetes workloads, thus becoming a supervisor cluster, it adds objects to the vCenter server inventory, such as namespaces, vSphere pods, and Tanzu Kubernetes clusters. Provisioned using the grid service. A Tanzu Kubernetes cluster runs inside virtual machines on the supervisor layer, and not on vSphere pods. And the pods running in the Kubernetes Tanzu guest cluster will not have direct access to the supervisor cluster resource. PowerProtect Data Manager protecting VMware Tanzu Kubernetes guest clusters. PowerProtect Data Manager allows IT operators and backup admins to manage VMware Tanzu clusters and their protection through a single management UI. It uses the Discovery Service account and the token to integrate with Kuba API server of the Kubernetes cluster. Discovers the namespaces, labels, and pods in the environment. Once the discovery of cluster completes, the cluster is added as an asset source, and associated namespaces as assets are available to be protected. The cProxy of PowerProtect Data Manager doesn't have access to supervisor resources. PowerProtect Data Manager does not use cProxy for backup and restore process. However, it utilizes the vProxy-based protection solution. Before adding a Tanzu Kubernetes guest cluster in PowerProtect Data Manager for namespace and PVC protection, the following one-time configuration is required to set up the supervisor cluster. Enable Velero vSphere operator from the vCenter UI. Enable changed block tracking in guest cluster. Install Velero and Velero vSphere plugin using the Velero vSphere command line. In this demo, configuring PowerProtect Data Manager to protect a VMware Tanzu Kubernetes cluster. Log into PowerProtect Data Manager UI and select Infrastructure. Select Asset Sources. Enable vCenter and Kubernetes Asset Sources. Add a VMware vCenter server that hosts the Tanzu Kubernetes guest cluster. Select vCenter tab and click Add. In the name field, specify the vCenter server name, then specify its fully qualified domain name or the IP address. Under Host Credentials, choose an existing vCenter user credentials, or you can add new credentials. Ensure that you specify the credentials for a user whose role is defined at the vCenter level, then click Save. If you want to schedule a full discovery at a certain time every day, move the Schedule Discovery slider to the right, and then specify a time. Save the configuration, and finish. Now vCenter is added as an asset source. Then, click on Kubernetes tab to add Kubernetes cluster and asset source. Click Add. For Kubernetes Tanzu guest cluster, move the slider to the right, and select the vCenter server that contains the guest cluster from the list. Under Host Credentials, click Add to add the service account token for the Kubernetes cluster. The service account must have adequate permissions and bound to a cluster role, then click Save. Click Verify to review the certificate and token information. Save the configuration and finish. Tanzu Kubernetes cluster is added successfully, and discovery status is OK. The namespaces in the cluster should appear in the Kubernetes tab of the Assets window. Under the Virtual Machine tab, virtual machines are successfully discovered. Under the Kubernetes tab, namespaces are now available for protection. Now go to Tanzu Kubernetes cluster command line. Upon adding the Kubernetes cluster as an asset source, a PowerProtect controller is installed on the cluster, which is also used to install Velero with Data Domain Object Store plugin and vSphere plugin. Run kubectl command to list namespaces. You can see here all namespaces in the cluster, including PowerProtect and Velero PPDM. Now let's have a look on the pods in each namespace. Run kubectl command to list pods in namespaces. The PowerProtect namespace contains PowerProtect controller pod, and Velero PPDM namespace contains Velero pod and backup driver pod, which is responsible to take and delete snapshots for para-virtualized CSI volumes of Tanzu Kubernetes clusters. Then, go back to PowerProtect Data Manager UI to add a VM Direct engine that is dedicated to Kubernetes workloads. From Infrastructure, select Protection Engines. Click Add to add a new engine. Specify the details for the protection engine. For supported protection type option, select Kubernetes. Complete the network configuration and review the summary, then finish. VM Direct engine is now available under Protection Engines. Now we can create protection policy to protect our guest cluster. From the Protection menu, select Protection Policies and click Add. Specify the policy name. Select policy type as Kubernetes and click Next. Select the purpose of the backup, either crash consistent to snapshot persistent volumes bound to the persistent volume claims in the namespace, or exclusion to exclude in this group from protection activities in Protection Rule Assistant. Then, click Next. In the Assets page, select assets you wish to backup and click Next. In the Schedule page, click on Plus Backup to add primary backup. Select recurrence as hourly, daily, weekly or monthly, and fill in the details accordingly. Then, click OK. You can either use an existing storage unit or create a new one. Click on Select to view available storage units. Then, click Next. Verify the provided information is correct under the Summary section, and click on Finish. To monitor the running configuration jobs, click Go to Jobs. We have 2 configuration jobs for the created policy. Both configuration tasks completed successfully. PowerProtect Data Manager performs backups according to the backup schedule. In order to run a manual backup, select the protection policy and click on Protect Now. You can select some of the assets or all assets defined in the protection policy. Then click Next. On the configuration page, select from the available backup types and edit the retention period if you want to change the default settings, then click Next. Review the settings and click Protect Now. Go to Jobs to monitor the backup progress. Here you can see the backup tasks progress. Backup jobs for both assets are running now. Backup completed successfully. To show job details, click the magnifying glass icon in the Details column next to the job name. In the Details pane, scroll down until the task summary is visible. Tasks for both assets completed successfully. You can view backup copies for each asset. From Infrastructure, select Assets, and click Kubernetes tab. You can filter with policy name. Select the required asset, and click on View Copies. You can see here the backup copy details, and if you click on View All, under PVC's Exclusion tab, you will be able to see the volumes included and excluded from this backup. Important notes. Discovery of a Kubernetes cluster discovers namespaces that contain volumes from both container storage interface and non-container storage interface-based storage. However, backup and recovery are supported only from container storage interface-based storage. There should be a minimum of 1 VM Direct Engine per supervisor cluster. Reference the following for more information. PowerProtect Data Manager 19.7 Administration and User Guide, and vSphere with Tanzu Configuration and Management Guide. Thank you for watching.